All right. So over the last couple of days, I had been giving everybody a couple of brief things about my family. If anybody hasn't noticed, I actually like talking about my family quite a bit when it comes to the origins of damage and the kinds of excuse me, and the kinds of reasons why I do what I do, and the types of creations that I make, whether they are creations that have to do with bad guys, or creations have to do with the good guys, the bounty hunters, the whatnot. They all have to do with, in some way, some family member or some kind of thing from my past. Now tonight I'm actually going to be doing a little bit about a character that goes by the name of Happy. Happy is a character that is grounded in the world of Damage Incorporated by my brother Steven. Stevie, as I call him, and I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who can call him that, is definitely this little punk rock guy inside of this world. There's a lot of punk rock in the Damage world, a lot of metal, a lot of problems with authority. And a lot of that comes down with the basics of the character. You see, a lot of these guys, the way we grew up, we didn't have anything else to grab onto other than the fact that we didn't know what else to be. Steven's character, Happy, is a psychic, very similar to his brothers and sisters. And in that regard, his powers are that he is sensitive to things, and he's also got some telekinetic juice that helps him do things like break through windows and smash through stuff. He's not the kind of telekinetic that moves objects with his mind. That would take more discipline than he's really capable of. Instead, what we have is this guy who can use things to amplify what he's trying to do. He wants to punch something, he can make it stronger. That kind of stuff. Now, growing up, Stevie and I definitely had some differences. I don't like that. Definitely had differences in how we reacted to things. Stevie was always really worried that people would know exactly how, scared of things that he was, and he hid it by being as tough as he possibly could. My route was that I was very, and some would probably say too much, I was very honest about the fact that I was upset about things and very open to the situation in a lot of different ways. And the comparisons that it made were different. Stevie would go and get into massive amounts of trouble, even more so than me, which is kind of impressive. And he would do things like get into fights with teachers, or he would get into situations that required a great deal of effort to get him out of it. One example would be in junior high, this one teacher had a real problem with Steve. Stevie's actually a bleeder, despite all the fights that we've managed to get in. And he decided to go up and start pushing Steve around, and he left these huge marks on him that actually ended up getting that teacher into a ton of trouble. He left marks on a student, and he deserved the trouble that he got at that point. In my opinion, he shouldn't have been pushing Stevie around. Stevie was probably being a bit of a jerk about it, but honestly, that guy got what he deserved in a lot of different ways. Steve is also extremely loyal. That is something that Dad read into us very clearly. Oops. And there's no getting around that. Dad made sure that one way or the other that both of us understood very clearly that our friends and our family were where our loyalties lie. For example, there was this time when I was first dating my wife, Marikar, and Stevie was kind of jealous that I was spending time with somebody and that my time was being taken away from our family in so many ways, but it didn't matter when it came to loyalty. Stevie was loyal. And what happened was this particular person had a crush on my one-day wife and kept expressing himself and how much he cared for her. And Steve didn't like how he was doing it, didn't care for it at all. He actually picked the guy up and put him inside of a locker, made him stay there all day. That was how Steve was. Even if he had a problem with somebody, if they were family, he was completely willing to bust heads for them. So that's exactly who Happy is as well. Happy is the kind of guy that he doesn't have a problem with getting into the thick of a fight, which that has a problem. You see, because he's also one of the lieutenants for the Sacramento chapter of Damage Incorporated, it means that the Sacramento chapter is probably in trouble a lot more often than they should be. In the main part of Damage, Angry Brain is always there to try to keep them all from getting into massive trouble. That's part of his job. He's their conscience, as Target put it in the second issue. He's there to make sure that they're not always shooting to kill. They're not always there trying to destroy anything and everything that they manage to get their hands on. They're trying to, do the right thing as much as they can, within reason. Got to make that money. But at the same point, you can't just kill everybody and everything that you meet and see. That has got its own all kinds of bad mixed up into it. But getting back to the kind of guy Stevie was. Stevie is completely and totally willing to back the people up that he loves. That's just a main part of him. He's not perfect. He made lots of mistakes. But he's got a good heart overall. I once saw him cry for hours because a mouse had been killed by one of our cats. I'm saying not to make fun of him, but to give you guys a picture of the fact that Stevie, despite his false bravado, was always very, very caring. And usually if you're doing something with him and he's being a jerk about it, it's most likely to hide how he's really feeling about something. Like, for example, and I haven't really talked about this ever before, but when my dad died and I had to call Stevie and tell him, it was a pretty hard moment. I mean, talking about somebody you love dying is hard enough, but see, Stevie was on his way to see Dad. He was living far away. He was living in Colorado, and he had packed all of his kids up to make a trip so that they could go and meet their grandpa and spend some time with them and whatnot. And he didn't make it. When you lose somebody like that, when you lose somebody you give a damn about, that feeling like you didn't make it never goes away, dude. Never. When the doctor called me to tell me that Dad was in trouble. That phone call had come like 24 times. I really didn't take it very seriously, and that's mainly just like I said. Dad had been so close to death so many times. Like, well, it was one more, experience close to death. It was one more time around that kind of situation, But at the same point, by the time I had realized what was actually going on, it was too late. Neither one of us got there before he died. Now look, I'm lucky. A couple years before that, he'd been in such a bad accident because this one really crazy yuppie hit him while he was on his motorcycle, or my motorcycle, to be more honest. And because of that, I had a chance to say goodbye to my father. I will always appreciate the fact that I got that chance. Not everybody does. So when he finally died, when that stroke finally took him, after all the years of fighting against his diabetes and fighting against all of his health concerns, after the diabetes finally won and he stroked out, I still felt really terrible. But one thing I didn't regret is I didn't leave anything open with my dad. I didn't have anything that I had wanted to say but didn't. A lot of people, they never get that chance. A lot of people leave things unsaid. It takes a lot of courage to be honest with somebody that you love, especially when they're a screw up, or especially when you might have something negative to say. And that definitely was a factor here. I got a chance to look Dad when he was, well, that's way too big. When he was surviving that accident, and he and I got that chance to talk to each other very honestly, very openly about how we felt about each other, get some things off our chests. I got to talk about what it was like being the son of the toughest guy on the planet and feeling like no matter what I did, I could never measure up to him. And he got to talk to me about the fact that he cannot believe that I ever thought that he was ashamed of me. Instead, we talked about how brave that he thought I was, and we got a lot of stuff off our chests. I was never disappointed in Dad because he didn't have a crap ton of money. I was just disappointed in him because there was a few things I wish he could have learned a little bit easier, a little bit sooner. For example, it's taken me a long time to get used to the fact that he's not here for my kids. And in all honesty, if there's one thing I could change about the way things have gone over the last decade, one of them would have to be that I really wish my dad had made it through all the crap to be here for my kids. He definitely wanted to be, and I've had to come to terms with the fact that just because he wanted to be doesn't mean that he could. And that's just how it is. Now, one of the things about the psychic powers that happen with a lot of the characters, especially this particular family that I like to use, I like to show them as bubbles. I can't answer why. It's something that I've done for a very long time. So when one of them starts using their powers, and I'm not talking about electrokinesis or I think I do some bubbles with Sarah's powers when she's using her empathy, but when one of them is using their senses, then I'll tend to go ahead and start letting some of those powers out. In this case, this is Happy, basically figuring out that something's going on around him and kind of looking around to figure out whatever it is. Happy's character, I haven't written a whole lot of stories about him. He's from a time when in my life I didn't have a lot of friends around. So I would start, God, where the hell's that tool? When Matt and Juan had left off into their mission, and when Wayne was in the army and Chris was in the army, and I was basically, it was me and Dana, like going to school and not doing much. And I'd see Kinder on occasion. He was still in school. But what would end up happening is I would hang out with Stevie, and he and Brian and Eric and Troy and some of those guys, that's what the Sacramento chapter is basically made out of. The Sacramento chapter is made out of all of the guys who were keeping me out of trouble while the rest of what I would call the main group of damage was off doing their crazy stuff. They stuck around. They kept me from getting into too much trouble. And they had my back when I needed them. One time, we were playing D&D in one of my buddy's garages. That buddy's name is Chris Cotta. And this imbecile of a local kid had been having problems with Chris and a couple of Stevie's other buddies, and he kind of rolled up on the garage next to us and wanted to have words. You know what? I don't like the size of that. He had become obsessed with trying to beat up Cotter's father. Now, that sounds stupid, and it sounds just as stupid to you as it did to me at the time, as well as it did to anybody with any brains who was listening to it. Now, the reason why it sounds so stupid, this kid had recently started doing meth. And when you start doing meth, there's a lot of stupid things that you end up doing that makes sense at the time, that doesn't make sense in the long run. And that's what his story was. That's what he was doing. He was out there getting into trouble and doing stupid crap. And part of that decided that he was going to beat up Cotter's dad. And he rolled up on this garage, right? And he rolled up on this garage while I was there and while my brother was there. Now this has got bad idea written all over it. Okay? The reason why it's got bad idea written all over it is because we knew this kid for a while. But we know Cotter a lot longer. And we weren't just going to sit there and let the guy throw a fit and get all pissy and do all this stupid crap that he was doing. And so he's sitting there and he's yelling. And I try to tell the guy to go calm down. You don't need to be yelling. You're looking for somebody who's not even here, et cetera, et cetera. And I try to get the guy to calm down. I tried hard to calm the guy down. Didn't work. He had to have his way come hell or high water. And he made the mistake of laying hands on my brother and then trying to lay hands on me, along with his buddy who was also there. Made the mistake of trying to put his hands on my brother. And then they had both me and Stevie to deal with. And we were taught, come hell or high water, that if somebody is going to start a fight like that, then they deserve what they get. And it turned into a big old thing. Cops got called after I knocked him out. And it was a summer-long confrontation. I'll put it that way. It ended up not being that big a deal in the long run, but which I'm glad. I really don't like hurting people. As a matter of fact, I detest it. Despite the rather fantastic amount of anger and frustration that everybody sees inside of Damage and whatnot, I actually detest that bullshit. I know, it doesn't make sense. Wayne or Gage would tell you that despite the fact that I really hate fighting people and that I really hate, when I can't resolve a situation without violence, that I'm also the first one to get everybody else in trouble. Part of the duality of being my dad's son. I have a temper. I don't put up with a bunch of crazy crap. That's just how it is. And in all honesty, there it is. And in all honesty, I don't think people should have to put up with stuff like that, Not at all. I'll figure that out later. Anyway, so this is a brief sketch that I did of the character known as Happy November. I'm sharing this because it's going to go out in the email here probably before I go to bed. And it'll probably show up in the comics later on. He has a couple guys he rolls with. One dude's name is Zern. And another guy's name is Weeper. You'll see them in other stories later on. They're the guys who basically run the Sacramento chapter, try to make money and stay out of trouble down there. But just as the older brothers have a little bit of problem in the Bay trying to keep out of trouble, well, so do these guys. So, hey, my Kickstarter's up and out there. Angerbrain Artworks .com as well as /Kickstarter. And anybody who wants to see some more Damage Inc. and see some more craziness of the characters, then do me a big old favor and check that website out. I'll be posting this up in just a little bit. All right, if anybody's got any questions, hit me up. Thanks.